Welcome to Conversation with Zaki Baruti, with your host, Zaki Baruti. And like always, I want to give a shout out to my biological family, what's happening, to the Universal African Peoples Organization family, what's going on, and to New Life Evangelistic Center family headed by Reverend Rice. Keep up the great work, and a shout out to our amazing cameraman, Bob. On that note, we'll have another great show because in the studio with me is a brother I've known for a period of time that is really a heavy brother, philosophically as well as in action. He's the chairman of the African Peoples Socialist Party. I'm speaking none other than Omali Yeshitela. What's going on, sir?
It's all right, my brother. How you doing?
All right, good. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
And what does Uhuru mean? Some people saying, damn, they are already starting this show and they tripping.
Well, I'm glad you raised that because before we started this, we were talking about Kenya. And Uhuru means freedom. And it was a word that was introduced to the broader world outside of Kenya by the Kenyan Land Freedom Army that was called Mau Mau. And it was they who initiated a struggle against the British Empire because Britain had dominated Kenya, colonized Kenya, dominated for many, many years. And so they fought the entire British Empire for years and years and years. And the British killed something like 300,000 people in Kenya to suppress that uprising of the people. So Uhuru means freedom. It's Swahili.
Freedom. Yeah. Everybody got that? Uhuru in Swahili means freedom. Yeah. And why do you say that now?
We say it because we think it's important. We think that freedom is something that should be on the minds of black people 24 hours a day. And so when we greet each other and other people, our greeting is Uhuru, freedom. And you call us at our office, at my home, the answer is going to be Uhuru, because we think freedom is important. And also we think it's important because it's Swahili, and it reminds us who we are as a people. And the fact that, which is the fundamental question, fundamental issue in terms of the oppression and exploitation we experience in this country. We are an African people. We are African people. And unlike the Europeans who are here and who brag about this country being a nation of immigrants, Africans did not come here as immigrants. We came as captives, and we came under the gun, and we were not expected to have
under the
rights.
gun and the whip.
And the whip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact is right here in St. Louis that this point was made, so clear, blatant, with the 1857 Dred Scott decision. Black people have no rights that white people have to respect.
Right away, when I asked you what Uhuru meant and you jumped into the history of Kenya, why is it important on two levels that folks understand history, both in terms of us right here in this country as well as African history and actually world history? Why is that important?
Well, I think when you say African history, world history, and our history here, you're talking about the same thing. The fact is, as quiet as it's kept, although we are considered and taught that we are a minority, there's something like almost 2 billion Africans in the world. And the success of the colonizers, that's what we're talking about, who came to Africa, made this war against Africa. We are here in this country because of an attack on Africa. And that's something that we really should remember. And Africa has been under assault now for 600 years, first by the Portuguese, and then the forced dispersal of Africans all around the world. When you look at this country that's called America, and you look at all of what's called Latin America, what have you, the Caribbean, all of that has been shaped by the forced dispersal of African people around the world. So there's a Jamaica because of that, there's a Venezuela because of that, there's a Cuba, Puerto Rico because of dispersal of African people. And the movement of what they call slavery, colonial slavery, and what have you. So we are one Africa, one nation, and we've been given a false national consciousness. The horrible things that we've been called by our oppressors, that even sometimes some of the negative things, we refer to ourselves by those terms as well. But you look at
terms such as
nigger. And I don't like the N-word because there's this thing, N-word, there's a real word that's called nigger. And it was created to define us as a people. And I think it's really important to say that because when you start doing otherwise, you're hiding the evidence of the criminality of what has happened to us as a people.
Now I have another question before I get to our original point of what we are here to discuss, which is the recent tornado in St. Louis. Now you use, just for clarification's sake for our audiences, you use the word colonialism.
Yeah.
What is colonialism? And then I want you to define what is capitalism and what is imperialism.
Right.
Okay.
Let me just
3 words.
let me just say that colonialism.
Quick and point to the point.
Colonialism is the absolute imposition by foreign and alien power of control of peoples and lands, and the people's lands. Colonialism. There's been a traditional thing that's called colonialism, where in the past, I say traditional, but I mean early on, colonialism was where Europeans left Europe. And then they would come to places, and then they would come to these places, and they would secure resources and send them back to what Europe they call the mother country. So England was the mother country for the white people who came here. And the objective was to take the resources, not stay here, but to take resources in from here and then send it back to England. This is part of what made England and Europe powerful, economically strong, and what have you. They took the land of the indigenous people who are now called Indians, etc. So that was how it was done previously. But what happened was, in some places like here, the Europeans decided to stay here and keep it all for themselves, as opposed to sending it back to England. So the fight for freedom by white people in this country was fight to have control themselves of the land that they took from the indigenous people, and the control of black people who they imposed, who they brought here, us, we. So in the first place, you had colonialism that many people it has been referred to as franchise colonialism here, various other Vietnam, various other places,
all across
Algeria.
The globe.
But here you had settler colonialism, where the people came and settled, where the white people settled on this land, the colonizers settled on this land and dominated the land, and then had the issue of having to dispossess the indigenous people, take their land, and disappear them.
Okay, on that note, we're going to have to take our first break.
I want to encourage you to continue to pray for the Zaki Baruti Show and the work of the New Life Evangelistic Center. You can help sponsor this show, the Zaki Baruti Show, by sharing your gift with the New Life Evangelistic Center at P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri. That's 63166. I spent a lot of time this past week among the tornado victims, that EF3 tornado that struck the St. Louis area on May 16th, 2025. I mean, the needs just continue to grow. And I encounter a lot of people that are having joy in their heart, but also they're very worried about what the future is going to bring. There's other people that are experiencing despair. We're trying to help people, not only with physical needs, but also encouraging people to have hope. Yes, and that's why we're also distributing the New Life Zoe free paper. We'll make available to you, Planting Seeds of Hope. It's just filled with testimonials, stories of people who found hope in the midst of desperate situations. Many of them are homeless people, people that begin discovering a new life. As we share hope, we want to encourage you to join us in doing that. And if you'd like a bundle of papers, drop by 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri. I want you to know that there is hope. You may have been one of the victims of the tornado. If you need shelter, call us here at New Life Evangelistic Center at 314-421-302. You need household items. We invite you to come and visit us here at 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri, and the free store that we have that you can select items out of, yes, between like 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. But call first, 314-421-3020. You can join the teams that go out on the streets daily by just linking up with our volunteers. And again, the number is 314-421-3020. Many, many ways you can get involved to help people at this critical moment. I thank God for those of you that are sharing with New Life Evangelistic Center so we can help those in need. It's P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri. That's 63166. Let's make a difference for good and go out and help so many right now. Let's let them know that there is hope. Let's continue to share hope through direct help.
Hear this, you who trample the needy and do away with the poor of the land. Let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. You trample on the poor and force him to give you grain. Therefore, though you have built stone mansions, you will not live in them. Though you have planted lush vineyards, you will not drink their wine. For I know how many are your offenses and how great your sins. You oppress the righteous and take bribes, and you deprive the poor of justice in the courts. Seek good, not evil, that you may live. Then the Lord God Almighty will be with you, just as you say He is. Hate evil, love good.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. In the studio with me is Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is over the African Peoples Socialist Party. And originally I had asked for you to come in to discuss the impact of the tornado, but we kind of got on my
But I think this is contributes to the discussion about the impact of the tornado.
Before we get into the tornado. Now you had colonialism.
So then you had settler colonialism, and then you have a situation where the settlers colonized, took the land of the indigenous people here, and then had brought us here, and then here they have a domestic colony. So inside a settler colony, they also colonized black people. And by the way, when we talk about settler colonialism, we're talking about the indigenous people experienced settler colonialism. And when I say indigenous, I'm including Mexicans and people who were here before,
right?
Whose land, who've been dispossessed, and whose presence is something that's really troubling for the colonizer because it's evidence of a crime that's being committed. And you see what happens to us. You see the similarity to what's happening right now, even in Palestine. You have the Palestinian people whose land's been taken before. In 1948, this is when, England gave, in something like 1917,
the Balfour
Declaration, they gave Palestine to white people who were in England, who were Jews. And I say in England, but they were not just in England. They were in Milwaukee, they were in Russia and all these other places. They took the land. But the problem is the presence of the people is a contradiction, because the presence of the people is an indictment of the colonizers who have come and taken the land. That's the same thing is true with the indigenous people here. So the indigenous people here, they live in in concentration camps that's called reservations.
Right.
And nobody even talk about them. Nobody talks about the indigenous people here. And so they're on in these reservations. Their land has been taken, their identity, and then the colonizer makes the law. The colonizer makes the law, not the colonized,
right?
Not us, not the indigenous people, etc. The colonizer makes the law, and the law that the colonizers make is a law that is law that justifies the relationship that exists between the colonized and those of us who are colonized. So you have the indigenous people here. Legally, the land now belongs to the colonizers. It doesn't belong to indigenous people. So if the indigenous people now take the land, they've broken the law. African people were brought here to be enslaved. This is one of the things that the Dred Scott Taney the Supreme Court Justice,
Chief Justice,
who put forth the Dred Scott decision, made it clear we were not brought here to be anything except property. We were not brought here to vote and do all these other things and whatever. And that was the Supreme Court ruling, by the way. This was not a Klan meeting that said this. This was the United States Supreme Court. And so what we see, among other things, is decisions get made from time to time by the colonizers, and we find ourselves having to respond to those decisions because they've taken our agency away from us.
Now, in terms of, throw out two words that people may hear and not even understand what they mean. Yeah. What is capitalism from your perspective?
Well, it's an absolute. It's not just a perspective. Capitalism is a social system. And it is a system that has come into existence. As
social, and when you say economic system?
Well, a part of that. When I say social system, I'm talking about the entire system within which economic life, cultural life, all this other stuff exists. And it has been characterized as a mode of production, capitalism. All the things that people need to live and the process of creating life for ourselves and et cetera happens within a mode of production. And what has been generally recognized as a mode of production in this instance is capitalism. Capitalism is the mode of production where the
What is the mode of production for people? I'm trying to break
I'm
it down
saying this.
elementary.
It's the process through which people exist and live. We just take it for granted. We wake up, and if we're lucky, we got a job. We go to work and stuff like that. We go to church. We do all these other things. All this stuff happens within a particular process of production, producing life, the production of life itself. That means that how we work, the basis of our work, and like a mode of production talks about the political economy, the economy. And so if you have an economy that's based as what we have experienced and exist on slavery, it's a mode of production. It's a process through which not only it impacts those of us who are colonially enslaved, but also those who do the enslaving. All of us exist and participate in this mode of production. It defines our reality.
And it's done for the benefit of whom?
It's for the colonizer.
Okay,
that's who it benefits. It's a parasitic relationship.
Now, let me ask this. I'm trying to get to another point. So to say the average white Joe person out there, because we've been focusing on the oppression of black folks, is he impacted by, quote unquote, capitalism?
Yeah, the average, but here's the problem. The average white Joe is a colonizer. No matter whatever, I'm not talking about whether he likes black people or anything like that, hip hop, etc. Is a colonizer. I'm talking now about an objective economic and political relationship that this average person has with us and even has with himself. So what you have is capitalism rests upon a foundation of colonialism. It's what Karl Marx referred to. He used to call it primitive accumulation. He has to say, how does capitalism come into existence? Where did the capital come from? And so he said the starting point for this whole thing was turning Africa into a warring for the commercial hunting of black skins.
Now, again, and we're educating the public. You made mention of Karl Marx. Who was Karl Marx? But before you answer that, we got to take another break.
So many people are hurting and hopeless. They feel despondent and in despair. They are living on the streets in conditions that are horrible and not suitable for any human being. And it takes so many loving people to walk alongside them and give them opportunities to change. Zaki Baruti and his show is exposing the people who are making a real difference in our community. And he's been a faithful partner of New Life Evangelistic Center for many years. And I want to invite you to be like Zaki Baruti and make an impact in someone's life today. You can love others well, and you can do it in a meaningful and powerful way. I am so thankful for people who have partnered like Zaki, and I just want to share some of the impacts that you're really making when you partner with New Life Evangelistic Center. You're offering 365 days of care for a woman in need who's fleeing domestic abuse. You're offering not just care, but discipleship and mentorship and training services for her. Not only are you doing that, you're also getting hygiene kits and survival gears into the hand of people who need them, who are living on the streets of St. Louis. Not only that, but you're caring for orphans and widows in India, and you're preaching the gospel in every single one of these places, India, Ukraine, and all throughout mid-Missouri. You're also helping hundreds of people each day in the day center in Springfield. You're making a real impact on the lives of hundreds every single day. And you do that when you partner alongside New Life Evangelistic Center, along with faithful partners like Zaki Baruti. How I thank God for people like you for change.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. In studio with me is Brother Chairman Omali Yeshitela of the African Peoples Socialist Party. And I had invited him to focus on the tornado that recently hit St. Louis, but we done got off into definition of keywords that everyone out in the audience should be aware of. And we also providing a little historical background to some of the points that he's making as it relates to the concept of colonialism as well as capitalism. And on the other side of the break, I was asking you, somebody say now in the audience, who in the world is Karl Marx?
Right.
So who is Karl Marx?
I think that's important. And also, by the way, I want to say that we're not diverting away from the discussion of tornado. This is related to the tornado, what we're talking about now, how it impacted African people and why it impacted us differently than it did people,
All right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say Karl Marx was a German. It's interesting that his nickname, by the way, was the Moor.
The Moor.
The Moor.
Oh, okay.
So
M-O-O-R.
M-O-O-R. That's
Okay.
just as some blackness somewhere there. But he was a German philosopher, economist, and politician. He was a revolutionary. He's is the person most responsible for the definition of what is called scientific socialism or communism, and hated white guy. So Marx, that's who Marx was. And he had,
Let me interject though. So Karl Marx, in one sense, could be, or can we closely equate John Brown of...
No, John Brown was really important. But the thing about Marx that's so significant is that he provided like the scientific definitions that most people are using. We talk about capitalism and stuff like that. He was the one who brought a scientific definition to that, to communism and socialism. So this is not to liquidate or obscure the significance of John Brown, but that was the kind of role that Marx played.
Okay, now the other thing is he wrote a historical book that, would you encourage people to get it and read it?
You can get it, but it's going to be hard to read. I mean, it's an incredibly difficult tome. It's Das Kapital, or called Capital. Das Kapital in German, which is capital. And he talked about capitalism. He defined capitalism.
And what was the name of the book, though?
Das Kapital.
Oh,
yeah.
I call it in English.
Capital. Capital. Yeah.
The Communist Manifesto.
No, that's a different thing. Communist Manifesto was 1847. He did this along with his collaborator and partner, Frederick Engels, the Communist Manifesto.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a specter haunting Europe, he said, and that specter, of course, was communism from their perspective. It was an important tome, and I think it's really important for us to understand that it was defining Europe and the relationship of the peoples of the world based on how Europe was experiencing it. Mm-hmm. We had a different kind of experience. We became objects. We were the objects of Marx's definition. We were never the subjects. Mm-hmm. This is why Marx could say, in terms of the development of the world economy, the development of the social history, this is why he was able to say at one point that capitalism was progressive. And capitalism was progressive from their perspective because it moved Europe from a state of feudalism, feudal domination that lasted for about 1,000 years, where white people in Europe, this is before the advent of Europe as a concept itself, were defined each other primarily in relationship to each other, to the different warring tribes that inhabited that territory. It was only with the advent of slavery and the colonialism that stemmed from that that they began to define themselves in the relationship to the rest of us. And this is where the concept of Europe came from. This is the concept of the white man grew out of that. There was no such thing as the white man, Europe, etc., prior to the enslavement of African people and the need for this group of people to define themselves in relationship to those of us whom they were exploiting and oppressing.
So to that end, fast forwarding then, in terms of you are the head of the African Peoples Socialist Party.
Right.
And socialist is a powerful word.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose? I mean, give us the concept of your organization, but we got to take a break.
Go ahead, yeah.
Since 1972, New Life Evangelistic Center has been on the front lines, reaching out, helping the hurting, the homeless, the fatherless, the widowed throughout mid-America. Yes, although it's had its roots in St. Louis, it now has expanded throughout mid-America into India, and Africa, Haiti, and other places around the world. Oh, what a history New Life Evangelistic Center has. And we have many of these history books available to you, and they're right there on Amazon. And if we can help you get one of those, you contact us at 314-421-3020. But in addition to all that, we want to share a lot of that history with you right here as we take a look at how the work began and how the Lord has taken us throughout the years and the miracles that we have seen, all because of caring people like you. You're part of the history of the New Life Evangelistic Center. And we're believing that 2025 is the year that the center is going to become alive and seeing the Lord do exceedingly beyond we can even ask or think. We're on the verge of miracles. Yes, New Life Evangelistic Center has a rich history, but there's much more yet to come. And that's why I'm inviting you to familiarize yourself with the history of the past and be a part of the miracles of the present. Yes, let the Lord God Almighty work in you and through you. Let Him do exceedingly beyond what you can ask or think. He's got a purpose for you. And we want you to be able to live out that purpose as you get directly involved in the history of New Life Evangelistic Center and what the Lord is doing now.
When you partner with New Life Evangelistic Center, you impact so many people. The economy in this country is really hurting so many all over. And we're seeing the number of people who are experiencing homelessness rise. You can make a difference today by giving your gift online at newlifeevangelisticcenter.org. newlifeevangelisticcenter.org. Make a real big change in the lives of so many.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. We're with Chairman Omali Yeshitela for only 3 minutes. Time has gotten away from us. We're having a great time. So I invite you back to continue this discussion, tying in all what you have just defined historically to what is happening in St. Louis per the tornado.
Right on.
So any closing remarks that you'd like to share before we got about a minute and a half?
I just want to say that it's really important for all of us, for our listeners. I know some people have certain kinds of prejudices based on their ideological viewpoint, etc. But there's some things that history cannot deny. The fact is that African people, black people, I say Africans because you can't get on a ship in Africa in 1619 as an African in Africa and then get off in St. Louis as a Negro. If we were Africans when we got on the ship, we were Africans when we got off the ship. And I think it's really important, and that's an objective truth. So I'm not talking about anybody's ideological prejudices. And that is really important for us to understand and grapple with that reality as a people. And I think it would shed some light on how we are treated and what happens. 1, 2, I think it's important to remember that things like the Bill of Rights and First Amendment that keep being attacked when it's associated with us, Malcolm, King, me. The government tried to put me in prison 15 years of what I said. I think it's important to understand that when the Bill of Rights was passed, the First Amendment, in something like, 18, I forgot the exact
The Bill
date.
of Rights?
Bill of Rights, 1797.
Yeah.
African people had no rights. We were enslaved. They were not expected to have any rights, etc. So this is our reality, that we've been fighting since our presence here to get something that looks like rights. The right to speak, the right to associate, the right to assemble, etc.
So what is the objective of the African Peoples Socialist Party before we close
The
out?
total liberation, absolute, unquestionable liberation of Africa itself, 12 millions of square miles of most extraordinary wealth that the world is now engaged in fighting over, except us, and wherever we are located. That's the part, Africa and African people, the liberation and unification of Africa and African people globally. That's the final objective that we're talking about.
Now, all what you said then in our second episode will be focusing on tying that in with what just recently occurred in St. Louis on May 16th,
Yes.
F3 tornado.
Yes.
So I look forward to that interview. This one went by too quick, but it is what it is.
Splendid.
So thank you again for being
you.
here. And to my audience, like always, we say everyone needs to belong to an organization that speaks truth to power and has the track record of uplifting our people. We say join the Universal African Peoples Organization, as well as become political conscious. And at every ballot box, every election that is, make sure you get out and vote. But before you do that, know the issues. On that note, May God bless each and every one of you. Uhuru.
Uhuru.